Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf has today formally resigned his membership of the new Nigerian People's Party, NNPP. His aides have joined him, and in fact, the flag of the party in the government house is now being removed. The House Minority Caucus have confirmed that there are alterations in the Gazetted tax laws. Interim reports have found out that multiple versions of Nigeria Tax Administration Act is now in circulation. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale right here in Abuja. So much for us to touch on quickly, and let's get to it. Some of what will be mind-boggling for you tonight about the state of our nation, some of the critical issues on governance, and perhaps those who will say that what are we paying our lawmakers for? Because they've been in recess for how long? Everybody is back to work except our lawmakers. What exactly is going on? A civil society organization is saying there are deliberate, almost a deliberate effort in jeopardizing the 2027 elections because of the delay in passing the Electoral Act. And all Nigerians must stay alert and beware of the possibility and the harm the lawmakers at the federal level may be doing to our electoral elections and electoral law. That we'll be discussing. But some other lawmakers are saying, look into the tax laws. It is doctored. We'll be finding out from them tonight on the program. But first, let me bring you up to speed with what is happening in Kano. Kano Government House, Kano Governor and his aides are all gearing up in what will be a very momentous political decision for the governor and his followers in the state. Now, the governor has formally resigned his membership of the NNPP. The development, we all understand, according to Sanusi Bature, Derkin Tofa, who is a governor spokesperson, says they presented a letter of resignation according to Tofa, and the party, NNPP, had been told of their exit. The governor conveyed in the decision in that resignation letter addressed to the chairman of the Diso Cherenchi ward of the NNPP in Gwale local government area with effect from the 23rd of January 2026, which quotes in part saying, "I write with a deep sense of gratitude to formally notify the leadership of the new Nigerian People's Party of my decision to resign my membership of the party." The governor also says that in that letter that the decision takes effect from Sunday, 25th January 2026. Governor Yusuf cited persistent internal crisis and the need to protect the overall interest of the people of Kano State as his reason for leaving the party. Officially, Governor of Kano State is a member of NNPP until Sunday. But let's hear from his spokesperson.
Here on a special mission and by the instruction of my principal, His Excellency the Governor of Kano State, Alhaji Abba Kabir Yusuf, who today been 3rd January 2026, decided 23rd January 2026, decided to withdraw his membership with the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, at his ward, which is Diso ward in Gwale local government area of Kano State. This resignation is solely personal due to the internal crisis the party is facing. And His Excellency, in the best interest of the good people of Kano State, decided to leave this platform at this time so that he can decide for himself another political journey. And His Excellency is resigning along with 8 members of the House of Representatives and 21 members of the State House of Assembly with the 44 local government chairmen in Kano State. And we will announce the next political destination of His Excellency in no distant time.
All right, so it's the final weekend of Governor Abba Yusuf in NNPP. Does it need any announcement? We do know where the governor is going to. We might as well help him to announce, so that it's not done in no distant time. But let's tell you about what has happened today at the presidential villa. where President Bola Tinubu today received the Olubadan of Ibadan land of Rashidi Adewolu Ladoja at the presidential villa. The visit came less than 4 months after former Governor Ladoja's former installation as the 44th Olubadan of Ibadan land in September of 2025, and just a day after we saw Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, who also paid the president a visit. The details of that discussion were not discussed until former Governor Ladoja came out. The Olubadan of Ibadan was talking about his meeting with President Bola Tinubu after both of them met.
I'm sure that the situation in Nigeria might not have been as even bad as it was. The problem is that the Nigeria is more complex than the state because of the fact that not all of us have the same notion about what we want in Nigeria. So, but nonetheless, the states have more money than we had when we were governors, and they are able to meet their commitments than what we had when we were governors. So I believe that by and large, the economy has to be fixed, and it's being fixed. We will hope that by the time it's leaving 2031, it will have put Nigeria where all of us will be proud of.
Oba Rashidi Adewolu Ladoja, the Olubadan of Ibadan land, after his meeting with President Bola Tinubu. So I'll take you quickly to Rivers State in the impeachment proceeding, which will now take a longer time before you see anything happen. So an Oyibo High Court of Rivers State today has adjourned indefinitely the suit filed by Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu, challenging the impeachment process initiated against them by the Rivers State House of Assembly. Justice Florence Fiberasima of the Oyibo High Court took the decision after being informed that 2 separate appeals had been entered in respect of the matter. The adjournment the court held would allow the Court of Appeal to first determine the issues before it. At a resumed hearing, counsel to the Speaker of the House, Martin Amawule, and 27 lawmakers notified the court of the pending appeals and applied orally for a stay of proceedings. The application was not opposed by counsel to the claimants, Paul Orikoro, nor by Lawrence Okuachaja, who represented Victor Okujombo, and Sokori Godboy, the other defendants in the suit. Justice Fiberasima consequently adjourned the matter sine die pending the outcome of the appeals. On our first conversation tonight, I'll take you to what has been a major controversy. The question, those tax laws doctored, those who saw it initially before it was passed by the lawmakers, and in fact it was even the lawmakers that first raised an alarm to say they've doctored the laws. Let me remind you of what the lawmakers saw and is concern about the laws as being passed and some of the copies and the versions that are flying around. Take a listen to the lawmaker on the floor of the House. This was sometimes late last year. Take a listen.
Mr. Speaker, I took my time in the last 3 days to look at the gazetted past copy, the vote and proceedings of the House of Representatives, and also went an extra mile to look at the vote and proceedings of the Senate, of what was harmonized. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what I passed on this floor is not what is gazetted. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I have all the copies, but I'm coming under privilege because I was here, I gave my vote, and it was counted, and I'm seeing something completely different.
You heard the lawmakers, but there's been public outrage and serious constitutional questions that have been raised following revelations by that lawmakers of alleged alterations of Nigeria's newly signed tax reform laws after concerns were raised on the floor of the House over discrepancies between the versions passed by lawmakers and those later gazetted. The Minority Caucus set up a fact-finding committee to probe what it described as an attack on the independence of the legislature. An interim report by that committee has now confirmed the existence of multiple versions of key tax act, identifying contentious changes affecting tax thresholds, enforcement powers, appeal procedures, and parliamentary oversight. The Speaker has since ordered the release of the certified copies of the laws and an internal verification to restore public confidence. Joining us tonight is the chairman of the Minority Caucus of the Ad Hoc Committee on Tax Laws, Honorable Afam Victor Ogene, to explain the findings, implications for governance, and what happens next. Thank you so much, Honorable, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shehu, and a very happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you.
Good evening, Nigerians.
Yeah. Are you, okay, I know that I saw you in Enugu, but are you ADC or a Labour Party?
Well, you know that on a lighter note, the kind of brand of politics we play now, you can be in PDP, you're working for APC, and you're in PDP, ruffling waters. But to answer your question directly, I'm transiting from the Labour Party.
But you have not entered your destination yet.
I've already taken my boarding pass to go into the African Democratic Congress, ADC.
From the Labour Party?
Yes.
Well, it does look like there's a settlement in court now as to the leadership of the party. Are you able to reconsider your decision of exiting the Labour
settlement?
Party?
The issues are quite clear to Nigerians. The only person that was being chased out of the Labour Party was Mr. Peter Obi.
Why do you say so? Who is chasing him?
The powers that be, interest groups.
Is it Governor?
You will recall.
Is it Governor Alex Oti that chased him?
No,
or Abure?
no. Governor
When
Alex
you say powers that
be,
who are the powers that be in the Labour Party that's chasing him?
The people who control the executive and the judiciary. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, in June last year, did give a far-reaching decision in which they pronounced that the tenure of Mr. Barrister Julius Abure was effectively over, and that parties are bound to use their internal mechanisms to resolve issues. And if Abure's tenure was over, as the Supreme Court noted in that well-considered judgment, we took the CTC, certified true copy of that same judgment, to INEC with Mr. Peter Obi, Governor Alex Oti, senators, House of Reps members, and State Assembly members to INEC. And INEC did nothing about that, only for them to issue a statement 4 days after Mr. Peter Obi declared for ADC that Abure's tenure had long lapsed. And that was now followed up by the judgment from Honorable Justice Lifu, confirming what we already knew all along. That's why I said the whole fight was about Mr. Peter Obi.
So what you are inferring is they wanted Peter Obi out of Labour Party.
Of course.
And you think that this was orchestrated? INEC is being used to orchestrate this?
If we Africans, if the witch cries in the night and the baby dies in the morning, who killed the baby?
What exactly are you talking about?
I am saying that as soon as Mr. Peter Obi left, they felt comfortable enough.
Who is behind all of
this? Who
is doing this?
I wouldn't know. We should be asking INEC why it took them that long to return the party to the people who should run the party.
So you blame INEC for destabilizing Labour Party?
They have a hand in it because in September 2024, the stakeholders of the party in Umuahia on September 4, 2024, did set up an interim National Executive Council led by former Minister Senator Esther Nenadi Usman. So why did it take INEC 1 year, 6 months to recognize Nenadi as chairman of the Labour Party?
Let me leave you, since you have jumped ship and you have abandoned your home and the platform that gave you your seat in the House, let's talk about the issue of governance. So you chair the committee to probe the alleged alteration of the tax laws, the gazetted copies. And there is a report from your committee, an interim report, It does look like there is a position identified and there are findings that your committee have come around to. What exactly how would you summarize your committee's findings?
Well, first, let me react to the fact of having jumped ship. I did not jump ship. This is an election year because primaries will begin in a few months' time. And so if you stay in a place that has become toxic as a politician, you also have to look for a place, to identify with. So that is what has happened. Coming to your question regarding the alleged alterations in the tax laws. Yes, I was in my constituency on January 2nd, 2026, when I was named as chair of a 7-man committee of the Minority Caucus to look into these allegations. And we got to work, even though in your opening remarks, you said the National Assembly members remain on holidays. Even sitting here is work for me, talking about issues surrounding the National Assembly. But to answer your question directly, the committee did indeed discover that there are different versions of the Tax Act. And who has done that? We do not know. You know that by parliamentary practice, you are given either 7 days or 14 weeks to turn in a report. And that's why we have labeled this an interim report and asking the minority leadership to give us the leeway to dig deeper and find out who must have done what.
But what you have found out is true to what your colleagues said on the floor, that there are discrepancies in the sense that to the extent that what we have or what we know, there are different versions. But what we should concern ourselves with is the fact that there is a tone of finality on what was passed by the lawmakers, which a lot of people would think that by the proceedings or the process of passing a law, once it leaves the corridors of the National Assembly, it goes on for the president's assent. And a lot of Nigerians would think that between that journey from the National Assembly to the president's table for assent, nothing should be added, nothing should be subtracted. Am I right?
You are correct, but it's not as easy as that.
Okay.
When the laws are passed, we run a bicameral legislature. Mm-hmm. The House of Rep passes it, the Senate does. If there are fundamental issues to be looked at, then we'll have a conference committee that looks at it. And then a final clean copy is sent by the clerk of the National Assembly to Mr. President for his assent. If he doesn't have issues with it, he gives his assent. And then it becomes an executive function to gazette that act so that it becomes amongst our codified laws, and the copy is sent to the judiciary via the Supreme Court. The National Assembly has its copy, the National Library, and all of that. So in between those processes, anything could have happened.
So your findings here, according to your committee, is that we now have 3 versions of the tax administration law, right? That's what you found out.
Yes, but in the midst of these investigations, we also discovered that there were efforts to try to get back to what the National Assembly originally passed. And the challenge now would be to find out who even went to the extent of changing certain aspects.
So let's get it categorically right now. Tonight, you are telling Nigerians that the gazetted law, as it's being circulated, is being altered, is being doctored, or has been doctored.
Shehu, it will interest you to note that before we even raised the alarm, some of our members did go to the Federal Ministry of Information and purchased a copy of the gazetted law, especially the Nigerian Tax Administration law. But by the time this issue was raised on the floor of the House, I think December 16 or thereabouts, we went back the next day to Federal Ministry of Information, and they weren't selling. So when you say the one in circulation, I doubt if there is anyone even in circulation, because if it's in circulation, it should be available to the ordinary Nigerian. And then they went ahead, even in their portal, the fiscal reform portal, that they had uploaded the gazetted copy. The one that was doctored, they had to pull it down. You know, so some of these shenanigans easily point to one fact. Even Mr. President did agree in his statement on December 30 that there were issues with the tax laws. I'll just read you one paragraph. The presidency pledges to work with the National Assembly to ensure the swift resolution of any issue identified. That clearly tells you that there are issues, even though he thinks that those issues are not enough to disrupt the commencement of the implementation of the tax laws on January 1, 2026.
And it's interesting that where the major problem is there are 4 of those laws, isn't it?
Yes.
Is in the problem fundamentally is the Tax Administration Act
yes.
of 2025.
Yes.
Now, and it's interesting that you have identified about 4 or 5 areas, paragraphs that are being altered, added or subtracted in the law.
Yeah.
Am I right? But are these portions that you have identified as being subtracted or inserted or doctored, are they fundamentally consequential to the execution of the law, to the average person?
They are, of course. Every little comma you see in a law has consequences. So if, for instance, you take away the power of the National Assembly to review what you're doing or for you to report back, and then you also give yourself the power of arrest, which wasn't in the original bill, later an act signed by Mr. President, then you're giving yourself powers that are ultra varies your, your original jurisdiction.
Let me let Nigerians know. Tonight, in that report, you've reported preliminarily to say that first, Section 29(1) of the Tax Administration Act of 2025. You see, on the reporting threshold, why the National Assembly certified version provided for a tax compliance reporting threshold of 50 million for individuals and 100 million for companies. The gazetted version lowered the reporting thresholds for individuals to 25 million from 50 million and 100 million from 250 million for companies. This is a clear case of the executive undermining legislative powers by illegally altering an already passed law to drag more taxpayers into the net. So the inference here is that Section 29 has been altered and those figures have been changed. It then means that the changes they've made to it will allow more people to be dragged into the tax net.
Yes. And then the reporting threshold for corporate entities that was initially set for 250 million was now lowered to 100 million, which means that if you are a corporate organization and you undertake transactions up to 100 million naira, then it will be flagged.
But there's this position by and there are those who find this curious. And I'm hoping that, and the reason why we are having this conversation is that Nigerians need to know, and the federal government and those who are in the first place pushing for the tax reforms are saying, to what extent? We were the one who proposed these laws. Why are we going to now alter it? It doesn't make sense, Honorable. How would you accuse the executive of altering a law in which this was an executive-backed law?
No, amendment. No law comes from the executive and goes, not many laws comes from the executive and return to the president for assent the way they came. But
they are saying that the way and manner, they were the one who pushed for these laws.
Yeah.
They were the one who pushed for the reforms. They were the ones who drafted it and pushed it for the passage of the National Assembly. Does it make sense for them to have been the one now altering it?
It does. What it means is that you had made a proposal. Whatever you bring, be it an executive bill, is a proposal before the National Assembly. And when you bring it as a proposal, For instance, you want the reporting threshold to be 25 million, 50 million, for instance, and no, they wanted 25 million and we said 50 million. Now, if you go back after the act has been passed to insert your original intention, the wisdom of one man or a committee cannot be superior to the collective integrity and wisdom of 360 members of the House and 109.
There are other areas that were pointed out, and this is actually very concerning. Section 64, which is the enforcement and power of arrest. Your committee said, and you have identified, you said, the Gazetted law illegally increased the powers of the tax authority to include the power to arrest individuals suspected of tax violation through law enforcement agencies and allowed for the sale of seized assets without a court order, which means that if Honorable Ogene is found to have breached the tax law in violations, either undercutting his reporting or his company's or his individual tax reporting or whatever, if you're found guilty, that the tax authority have the power to arrest and also to seize your asset and sell your asset without a court order.
That was the intent of the alterations.
So, but originally, what was the position of the law before this? Before you identified this?
No, this was a clear instruction.
It was not there at all. The power of arrest and all of this was not there.
It was a clear instruction.
Another one that you have identified is the definition of what is called federal taxes.
Yes.
And you said in that, it said the National Assembly certified version defines federal taxes to include income tax, petroleum tax, blah, 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 and the rest. The Gazetted version removed petroleum income tax and VAT from the definition of taxes under the federal government's administration. You said in your committee's report that we consider this as an affront to the executive powers, exclusive powers of the National Assembly to make laws.
That's correct.
So where is now the petroleum income tax and VAT? How are they being defined?
Well, that is why we said that this requires further investigations for the concerned individuals and organizations to come and give explanations to this.
And
these are only red flags that we have raised.
And are there more?
There are more, of course.
You've only identified out of the four, you only identify in one of the acts, in one of the laws, which is the Tax Administration Act.
Okay, even the Nigerian Revenue Service
Establishment Act.
You
found the issue there?
Yes, the issue of oversight. Why the authentic version passed by NAS provided that National Assembly can summon, demand reports, or enforce accountability in line with its constitutional rule of oversight. The altered Gazetted version curiously deleted this provision requiring quarterly and annual reporting to Parliament regarding the Nigerian Revenue Services, in total disregard and disrespect of the institution of the National Assembly and the doctrine of checks and balances, an important bedrock of Parliament.
So let's establish to Nigerians tonight the procedures of law for anyone who is a student of parliamentary processes will know that there are stages in the passage of laws. It goes the first reading, the second reading, the committee stages, and the public hearing. It goes back to the floor. It's passed and is being technically looked at. Then it's then eventually passed. When it's passed and there is concurrence between the two arms of government, then you find a clean copy and is now being finally passed on the general floor for presidential assent. So by law, whatever that is passed, nothing should be added or subtracted after that. Is that the situation?
That is the contention, and that's the situation.
Is that the position of the Constitution?
Yes, that's the position.
So anything added or subtracted to it is unconstitutional. It's criminal. It's illegal.
It's criminal. It has a criminal intent, and it's illegal, and should not stand.
But the executive,
in fact,
the executive is denying that this is happened.
They don't need a denial. What we need is an open and transparent investigation process. In fact, in our recommendations, one of the recommendations is that the minority caucus should, by way of motion, seek a mandate, set up a committee to review all previously passed and assented laws since this 10th Assembly. And I can wager a bet that you will find one or two that fall into this category. Additionally, some members are canvassing for a public hearing on this matter to be televised live so that the key dramatics personnel can come out and tell Nigerians what they do.
Who are those you think should be answering questions in this sense?
Sean, it might interest you that in the course of this work, we wrote to several organizations. And none besides the Director Litigation, National Assembly, who had an exchange with me regarding certain clarity that he wanted. But we wrote to the Honorable Minister of Information, under whose watch the Nigerian printing press that should roll out the gazetted copies is, the Chief Librarian, the Chief Registrar, Supreme Court of Nigeria, the Presidential Liaison Officer to National Assembly, the Executive Chairman, Nigerian Revenue Services, Zak Adedeji, the Clerk, House of Reps, and the Clerk, National Assembly. And it will be shocking that none of them, as we speak, has been able to commit anything in writing.
Up to now?
Yes, after at least a week.
Because there are those who will say, if you ask the clerk, the version that was given to him, because it was the office of the clerk that should transmit to the presidency the fine copy that had been drafted. And I was at a forum where Mr. Taiwo Oyedele was present, and I asked him categorically, who doctored it? And he said he wasn't doctored. And he blamed that in the process of passing laws and gazetting laws, they're all still manual. Typing, and instead of digitally computing some of these things, and there are possibilities of all of these clerical errors. And in all of this, he made it clear that it doesn't make sense for anyone to think the executive can be altering a law that the executive himself originated.
Well, Mr. Oyedele, with due respect, cannot pick and choose. This was the same man who, on Arise Television, handed a copy over to Rufai Oseni, a gazetted copy, around December 21 or 22. The same man, the presidency tweeted, where he presented to Mr. President around December 26th. So what was he presenting? First, he presented to the journalists a gazetted copy. And when the National Assembly ordered that, it should be re-gazetted, or the CTC of what will pass should be released to the public, Mr. Oseni cried out that he was at variance with what he was handed by the same Oyedele. I don't think he has taken up issues with Oseni on that. And then what did he present to Mr. President on December 26th? As put out on Twitter, X, by the president.
Let me probably just quickly remind our viewers what Mr. Oyedele said on this, because it is novel to find these reforms. But however, all of these controversies are marring some of what could become a positive out of it. This is what Mr. Oyedele said when I asked him this question at this forum.
So we did not forge anything. It wasn't anything. It doesn't even make sense. When the executive was the one that drafted it, it will now be forging it. Like what end? All those things that they learned that were forged, you're going to have to say who benefits from all of that, right? So I'm not going to make any conclusions. I'm just saying the nation, we should please look at that process so that we have the quality assurance. Whatever laws we enact, we can take it to the bank that this is the true reflection of what our lawmakers representing all of us have enacted. I have no issues with KPMG, they are my friends. But one thing I say I'll continue to do is, I will not say just in the interest of saying we are very receptive to feedback. We won't take anything. If you take just anything, that is not in national interest. We must put out the truth, whether it is hard, whether it is soft, whether people want it or not. Trust is not built in the moment. It's built over time. Sometimes people will know in 10 years, in 2 years, in 5 years. Let it be that when that truth is known, you were on the right path of that journey.
That's Mr. Oyedele. Yeah, on the final note, how do you respond?
Well, I think that Mr. Oyedele still have some explanations to give to make it, make meaning. He is not a lawmaker, so he could speak the way he has chosen to speak. But he did also concede that there could be clerical errors. But the Acts Authentication Act, passed in 1961, that took effect from January 1, 1962, later codified as laws of the Federation of Nigeria in 2004, talks about certifying accuracy. Only properly passed laws that are authentic and accurate that can instill confidence in the people. So we cannot begin to, when you even alter a comma in English, it conveys a different meaning. So while two judges can give divergent views on a particular issue, but lawmaking should not convey any hazy meaning.
Honorable Ogene, thank you so much, Chairman, House Minority Committee on the investigation on the alleged alteration of the tax laws. Thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take a break, everyone, but when we return, our conversation next will be, are there those who want to ensure that 2027 election is in jeopardy? The dangers are identified to the 2027 elections and the manner in which the lawmakers are handling the electoral law amendment. We'll be hearing from the former convener of the election situation room and election advocate, Ms. Enobi, after this break, everyone. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. So, the Nigeria's civil society groups are raising fresh concerns over delays in the National Assembly passage of crucial laws. The Nigeria Civil Society Group are saying that the Senate's failure to conclude passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill is dangerous. The group warns that the delay threatens critical electoral reforms and could undermine preparations for the 2027 general elections, with the Independent National Electoral Commission legally required to issue election notices by February. While the House of Representatives passed the bill in December, the Senate is yet to take final action, despite earlier commitments to do so before the end of last year. The Situation Room is now demanding that the upper chamber prioritize and pass the bill immediately upon resumption on the 27th of January. Some of the members of the Situation Room are also asking the question why the lawmakers are taking a long holiday when lawmakers across the globe are back to work and every citizen of the country are back to active work. Lawmakers are still on holiday. But let me allow you to listen to Mr. Wiser Yao, who is the convener of the election situation room, the Civil Society election situation room.
The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room expresses grave concern over the failure of the National Assembly to conclude passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill in 2025, and the Senate's continued delay in acting on a bill already passed by the House of Representatives. This inaction, now compounded by a prolonged National Assembly recess extending into 2026, undermines Nigeria's electoral reform process and threatened timely preparations for the 2027 general elections.
I'm now being joined by our former convener of the CSO Situation Room, Ms. Anna Obi, who is also an election advocate. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. Happy New Year. Good to see you, ma'am.
Happy New Year to you too.
So I see that some of your colleagues were not happy that our lawmakers are still on holiday. It's what day? 23rd day of the year, but some of our lawmakers are still in recess.
Yeah, we're not happy, and that's why we made the call. We have been on a retreat. You know, we just ended our retreat this evening, and that's why the call was made yesterday. We had to grant the press conference to say this is a priority. But it's like we're back to 2021 and 2022 on the issues of the electoral, bill again. In other climes, in the U.S., for example, lawmakers resume on the 3rd of January. In the UK, they return, they come back on the 5th of January. But today is 23rd, and we have critical issues. The issue of electoral bill, because amendment bill requires an urgency, because I want to say thank you to you and your team for what you did in 2021, 2022. And we remember how, that the electoral bill went several times, about 6 times or 7 times before the president signed the bill. And that I can attribute a lot to what Channels did, because he made a promise and eventually he kept to that promise because we pressed on it. So for the civil society situation room, we are just involved to make a difference. We are not the politicians. We are not the ones that this is, going to work on. You can look at the political rascality that is going on. Today you can have a governor who is partyless. You move from one party to the other, but we don't field anybody's name on a sheet of a voting sheet. You only put in the party logo, and the logo brings you in, and you can just get off and get out like that because of that particular judgment. You remember the judgment?
Absolutely.
Because normally what used to happen is once you move from one party, that seat is declared, vacant. And somebody else goes in because it's the party that is voted in. But because of judicial rascality as well, it has come to stay now that you can just get up and say, I'm no longer a member of this party. I will decide later. And so you have no party for even 24 hours or whatever. When you decide and you jump to, kind of rascality that is going on. But we are asking the lawmakers to make this a priority, because when it happened in 2022, if you remember, the election shifted for 1 week because of the timing of the presidential assent to the bill. And so we're really, really worried, and we're calling them.
So now, it's a problem of timeline. And by law, nothing in the process of election is actually a process, not an event. It doesn't just happen. Yeah. There are processes by law that you must observe before the final day of voting, for which if you do not obey it, it then poses a problem. In fact, it can invalidate the actual voting or the mandate of that election. It then means that by February, the actual process of the 2027 election should have begun.
Yes.
And by the virtue of our regional laws, West African law, which says that any law that will guide an election should have been amended, framed, and finalized at a certain window before the election.
Yeah.
So the fear that I hear from you and your colleague is that if before February nothing is done, we are in a problem. Except if we are not going to amend the law before 2027. Is that right?
Yeah. I think we were there. We were almost there, in 2022. But the National Assembly came back quickly and they amended. And they took it to the president. And the president ascended. But even that ascension, that assent was delayed. And that shifted the election for 1 week. And so it affects the political guidelines. It affects INEC guidelines. And that is why we think that the amendment is very, very essential, because, the amendment is focused on giving greater independence to the Electoral Commission, It is also focused on giving, putting certain rules in place, like you're looking at the issues of those in prison, you are looking at heavier sanctions on the electoral offenders, looking at also when somebody makes pronouncement on under duress and so on and so forth. There's so many things there. And so definitely it will affect the electoral guideline, and we're saying that there have been some good suggestions that are coming up in the amendment, and the earlier they do it, the better. The FCT election is almost here.
It's next month.
It's next month, and we are here in the FCT, and we hope that whatever we do, it will affect the political and the electoral processes.
By the way, the House of Representatives seem to have graduated the processes on their own table very far.
Yes.
But the delay and the drag and the law that we're experiencing, or the lag, is in the Senate.
Is in the Senate, yeah.
So is the Senate, those senior members in the red chamber, that the attention of Nigerians should be focused on? If anything goes wrong, we should blame them.
We are holding them responsible, absolutely. Because when we had the issues, the movement in 2022 was very fast between the both houses. And what we're having here, the reaction from the House of Representatives has been, they did that before they went on break, but we're having the delay from the Senate, because it also takes time, so that you don't have a version control, like what you are having with the tax laws and all of those things. You don't have a version control as soon as that. So if they don't approve it in January, it's going to slow us down.
We experienced it in 2022.
Exactly.
Back and forth.
That's right.
And the danger a lot of Nigerians need to know is that it then affects INEC's preparation.
Yes.
INEC is in a state of, in a precarious situation, because then they don't know what to do, or they have been following the existing law, which is the 2022 electoral law. Then another law comes into effect, and they need to just start adjusting. Then these lawmakers probably don't understand the fact that whatever delay they are doing is dangerous not only to INEC, and at the end of the day, Nigerians will be blaming INEC to have rigged the election, not knowing that the consequence of the action of the lawmakers is what is causing it. But critically speaking, we do know that INEC should give notice of this election by February.
Yes.
Right.
1 year to the election.
1 year to the election.
The timetable must come out.
But is it realistic that that law can be passed before February?
Well, it depends on the actions, and that's why we're worried that the resumption was delayed. I mean, Nigerian, if in developed world, that they are resuming 3rd and 5th, and in our own world where we have a lot of things to tidy up before the 2027 general election, we are still on recess.
And let me warn
by the 23rd.
Ramadan is coming in February.
Ramadan, by the 17th or thereabout, Ramadan will come in, and then there are other processes that will also jump in. And so we are asking them, as they resume on, what are the processes they've gone through first and second reading? Let them harmonize, move the speed, the space very quickly, knowing that they have a responsibility. Because why do we have lawmakers if they're not making the laws? What are we paying for? What have they been enabled to do? And those are the things that we're looking at. This is the 10th Assembly. The 9th Assembly did it, and we're calling on the 10th Assembly to quickly move. If not, we'll hold them responsible for whatever
But
happens.
I'm wondering what really went wrong, Ms. Obi.
Yeah.
By October of last year, the Joint Committee had come to almost a final or an agreement on a copy of that law.
Yeah.
And one would have thought that between October and December, a lot of us have thought that part of the Electoral Act amendment process would have been concluded. The constitutional amendment process will also have been graduated to a very far extent. But what exactly went wrong? All of a sudden, October went, November went, December, and nothing really happened.
Yeah,
and we are here.
At the harmonization section that there was done in Lagos, I was part of, I observed it, and some of the things that went on, one can say, what are the priorities? And when they came back from that meeting, the House of Representatives was able to hurriedly, the electoral, amendment bill requires urgency. And because of that, they took it quickly. And that's why they passed this while we're talking about special seats and all other the constitutional amendments that were supposed to happen. They separated it and dealt with it. So at this point, we hold the Senate responsible for any kind of fast action that they can do. Whatever they do, we'll be watching them and we'll be holding them accountable.
My worry is that just like I warned in 2022, and it made me a prophet, a political prophet, because I said that the manner in which we were going in 2022, a lot of political parties will have entered into the election process blindly, because the electoral law, and I mean, not only because I'm a political journalist and an election coverage expert also, but also because I'm also a student of law. And I've seen a lot of technicalities in the bodies of laws guiding that election. And I said that there were going to be several problems in the Alteration, Section 84, and 105, and a few other sections, 115, and a few other sections that were amended, and it happened. A lot of political parties entered into a problem. Their primaries were fundamentally flawed because they did not pay attention to the electoral law. And political parties are going to have a problem too, because when this is done, it's going to be hurriedly done when they resume. And
INEC allowed some, primaries that went on that shouldn't have gone and to be pronounced. They pronounced it, as if they didn't give enough. It is a big problem that we're having. If we don't do this, because if you remember, the late IGPRC, had to go and do a lot of training for the security, for the police and also the security agencies. And that is what you do, because when the law comes out, you need people to familiarize themselves with the law. And this is not done just overnight. You have to, even the INEC officials, they will need to get used to the law, and they will need to come out with the regulations, what is in need for them and what the things that they ought to do. And the citizens also need to know exactly what is in the law. And so I think at this point, we're turning to the National Assembly. As they open on Tuesday, we're calling on them to pass the law, because pass the bill, the amendment bill, so that we can quickly, INEC will jump into, because by first week of February or thereabout, they should be announcing the guideline and also the financial attributes as well. One of the things that the civil society followed up with, whether the money ought to be given to INEC 1 year to the election and all of that. At the end of the day, we don't know whether INEC gets all the money or they don't get all the money, but in a situation where you have, 2024 budget and 2025 budget not even implemented, we don't know who gets money to do what and all of that.
Do you fear for the 2027 elections? In what already is happening now?
Yeah, because of the kind of rascality that I mentioned earlier, where people are jumping table from here and there.
But again, even logistic-wise, if there is a stipulated time for INEC to get the money before election.
Yeah, and they don't get it.
First line charge, they get the money. But we've been having execution of the budget.
Traumatized execution, yeah.
Are you worried?
I am worried, but they have a responsibility. And anybody who is... what you do during your process, you take responsibility. And so...
Thank you so much indeed. It's always a pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much
indeed.
Have a great year.
She was the convener of the CSO Situation Room on elections. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Solidarity forever. And Victoria Asata. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Kimbaloe. On Sunday, don't forget, at PM, we've got something cooking for you. I see you again. Bye-bye, everyone. God bless Nigeria.